I can't draw for shit, and the Remarkable 2 is not a great device for drawing. But in saying that, I have managed to create this, and this, and this, all on the device. Well, not all on the device, I shouldn't tell a lie. I got it up to this stage here, which is exactly where we want to be when drawing or writing a kid's book, which is what I'm currently in the process of doing. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I draw on the Remarkable and the processes I take with its fairly limited drawing features. Now, before you say anything like, Greg, this is writer's implements, not, illustrator's implements. Yes, that's true. You are correct. But I am not prepared to pay an illustrator. I don't have the money, and I'm also a bit of a control freak, so I like trying to just do things myself. I'm writing a 30-ish page book for my kids to read, who are 2 and 4, and we'll see where it goes from there. So you might find this helpful if you are using the Remarkable 2 and you don't really want to invest in yet another device in order to draw. So let's just clear the slate, and we'll start with a fresh page of the new one I'm writing / drawing. It's about an escaped pig looking for an adventure and a vampire bat looking for change. And as with all good writing sessions, I believe a lot of these things start with caffeine. Now, this is the pig here. Yep, Spectustuka. Yeah, and we won't look at that. Anyway, so we've got the bat there as well. So we've got the fresh page here, and I start off with just the first layer. Now, this layer is a draft layer or a planning layer. What I'm trying to do here is get it to a point where I know what the perspective is going to be. Now, I only ever use 3 pens, which is the fineliner, the calligraphy pen, and the paintbrush. They give a nice sort of firm black line, which sort of helps the process in terms of like exporting it later. But for the drafting, I actually just use a pencil. Obviously not literally the digital pencil, but it sort of helps me get into that sort of sketchy sort of mode. So here I'm just sort of resizing everything, trying to get a idea of what the perspective of the illustration is going to be like. Now, I've picked this particular page of illustration because I want to sort of show how you can use the limited layer system to generate depth. So on a second page, I'll actually start drafting my characters. So I'll draw them out and just get everything sort of like looking approximately correct, or the way I think it should look. I do this just to keep my mind clear, and I've got the freedom to sort of like draw without any clutter. So I've got here the pig, I've got the bat, and then eventually I'll just copy them and then move them across to the next page. Now, I've added a anchor layer here, and they are going down on the anchor layer. This is the layer that sits in between the foreground and the background, and it basically doesn't move. Things get built on top of it and below it, but basically you've got to sort of work with that perspective. So the bat goes in now. The bat's higher up than the pig, he's flying. So he's going to go and sit there too. So as you can see, I've got the 2 layers. The bat goes in. I'm just going to sort of adjust how everything looks there. And then already it's starting to look fairly okay. So now I've put in a 3rd layer. That 3rd layer goes down, so it is in behind our anchor layer, so behind our central characters. And this is just trees. There's a forest in the background of this particular image. And so I just start drawing trees all along in a central sort of plane. So they're all sort of existing around about on the same line. So I like birch trees, so I'll put a good birch in there. And as you can see, my birch trees are not like amazing at, in terms of illustration, but they do the trick. Remember, after all, this is just for my kids. So as you can see, I've got that layer sort of sitting above, and if I turn off the central layer, you can see that the pig and the bat are gone. So keep drawing trees, having them get smaller and smaller as they sort of like fade off into the distance slightly. And then around about this stage, I'll start thinking about another layer of trees. So you've got the draft layer, which is there, and I'm gonna actually erase that at the moment because I know where my trees are, so I know where they start. So the draft layer gets erased from that particular part of the image, but we don't delete the draft layer. And then what I'll do is I'll start building in a second row of trees. So I add another layer, eventually, and that new layer gets generated, but that has to sit in behind the current row of trees, so it gets pushed down twice. So I move it in behind the layer that has the trees. And then so I'm actually going to use the copy tool to copy a couple of the trees, because I'm not going to draw every single tree. It's just going to take far too long. So I adjust the sizes and I sort of copy it from one layer to the next, moving back and forth, back and forth. And eventually we start to sort of pad out the image a little bit. And it's starting to look busier and busier. Now, you may notice something here, that the trees are in conflict with each other. So the trees behind are showing up in front of the trees in front. So we select the layer which has the trees in front. No. So we select the layer that has the trees in behind, and we erase where the trees that are in front are, in which case it brings them back into the foreground. Now you can use the eraser, but I find it's not that precise, so often I'll just use a white pen because we're going to be clearing that white layer later. So basically I'll just go through and just color out all of the details that are coming from the trees behind that are now in front. And so I'll use the empty space in order to keep building these trees and sort of fading them off into the distance. And so as I go, I'll basically add a layer and then I'll compress it down. So that layer of trees becomes the central layer of trees. And then another layer in behind, and then compress it down, layer in behind, compress it down, so you can keep on building into the distance without exceeding the maximum 5-layer restriction that is on the Remarkable tablet. So as you can see here, I've just added that extra layer and pushed it down so it's in behind the trees that are already existing. And so I just keep on building it out, building it out, building it out. Some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger. Not saying that this is the right way to do things, but this is just the way I have found things to be most effective. So building and deleting and building and erasing and building and, filling in negative space, and finally ending up with the sky. And so as you can see, I've actually built it all the way out into the distance, and I can go through and add my characters back in and erase anything that is overlapping my characters. So I go through and I choose the layer I need to and just color out the stuff that is on, for example, the bat. So finally I add another layer, and that's our going to be our top layer. So you can see that I've actually hit the restriction already. So I need to be very, very careful and choose which layer is going to be collapsed into the layer below it. And so basically I still keep my draft layer. Probably, maybe not the best decision, but I've collapsed the two layers. I've collapsed the trees in with the bat. I'm almost convinced that I'm not going to move it. Fun fact, I do move it later, which is a pain in the ass, but it's just one of the restrictions. And so this layer here is the foreground, and so that sits on top of absolutely everything, because anything that comes out of the foreground that overlaps the background is going to take priority in terms of camera perspective. And so I start building the world out. I've got a scraggly tree here, and I make the decision to eventually move the bat and put him under part of the tree there. So basically all we're doing now is forcing perspective, and all while working within the 5 layers that are available to us. So as you can see, I'm actually getting fairly close to the finish here. This actually took about an hour, and I'm not I wish it was as fast as it is on the video, but as you can see here, I've moved the bat. It's left some negative space, in behind where the bat was, I'll need to go through and fill that in again. So going through on the layer, adding a few little details, and just sort of getting to a point where we're kind of happy with the details that are available to us. And then finally I'll just go through and sort of tidy up a few of the lines here, get rid of some of the drafting lines, just make everything a little bit more clean, put some eyes in, and I'd go through and do a touch-up over the course of like a day. So this eventually is sort of, you know, where we're at. And I was okay with this, but come the next day, I decided to make a few more changes, just sort of get things looking a little bit tidier. But for the course of this video, it seems to be fine. So I opened up the Remarkable application on my desktop, exported it in both PDF and PNG, and you can see the difference here. The export profiles on this are pretty appalling. That's the PNG right there. And to be honest, I think it's pretty trash. I mean, it's scalable, but it really just doesn't look all that tidy. So I take the color to alpha option and basically click OK on GIMP, and it removes all the white, and then I just start coloring it in, and at this point it's paint by numbers, and I'm really sort of winging it here. This is actually the first image I've colored in from this particular kids book. So really all it is just me just sort of picking colors and having fun, and it's really like probably the most sort of fun part of the process. Seeing it come to life with all the color is really cool. Sorry to anyone who's got any sort of like epilepsy here, because this is like quite intense to watch. But anyway, picking the colors of the trees and sort of just doing general sort of Photoshop-y sort of things without actually using Photoshop, and it sort of illustrates itself, and that's how it ends up. Obviously there are things that I can touch up there. I can put some more texture in the grass and stuff like that. But in general, that's my process for getting it done. I feel like there are a few things that I can sharpen up. I don't have a crazy amount of practice in terms of getting those layers like really like nailed in. I'm not as organized as I'd like to be in my process. So there is stuff that I can improve on, and if you've got anything that you think I could improve on or some advice for me, please just leave it in the comments. Don't make it a drawing advice, because I'm pretty hopeless. I've been trying to draw for the longest time. Any methods that you use with the Remarkable in terms of drawing, other than just like flat sketching everything. I do find that the eraser tool is not that great. So using that white fill to sort of like tidy up an image, I find is way more precise. But again, just pleading to the Remarkable team, if there's any way to sort of tidy up the PNG export profiles, I would be delighted. Anyway, that's been it. Hope you got something useful out of that. If you're looking to sort of embark on this process, if not, cool, but hopefully I can release this book at some point for the kids, for my kids, and maybe if you've got some kids or kids that you know who want to read it, then yeah, it'd be really cool. Thank you for watching. Yeah, bye bye.